Alrighty, we're back. Hey guys. So today we're gonna make this material. Yay! It's a nice little stylized castle wall material I did. And I know AI can probably do this already, and you might as well take an existing one from one of the bazillion asset stores we already have. But where's the fun in that, I ask? Okay. So if you're interested in learning a little bit about Substance Designer and how to make a stylized wall material like this one, this video is for you. And yeah, don't forget to like and subscribe. We're currently on our castle journey. We're building the mightiest castle of all, the mightiest castle generator of all, to be clear. So this material I'm making for the castle generator I just mentioned. So we'll be using that one later on in action. And we'll make one generator. This is how it currently looks. And yeah, we can get as many variations of this as we want with this, but we'll need two different ones so we can blend them later together. So we don't see the tiling, across a big castle wall. We want to have at least two different textures we blend together to break them up. So first of all, let's make a new, you can make a new substance. I'll just add a new one here. New substance graph. Then we get this window. We can just call it castle underscore wall. I call it tutorial. 2K is fine. You can leave 2K. 4K will be quite a bit more work because you have to focus on the details a bit more. But for stylized material, I would say 2K is a good start. You can always change it afterwards if you want to. So yeah, what I like doing is first create a material, what's it called? First create a base material, that's what it's called. And you can right click, view in 3D. Then we have this. This basically just gives us our, all the basics we need in, let me move my mic a little bit. Okay. All the basics we need, like base color, normal roughness, and we can expose them while we go. So for example, we already want to create a, let's just create a tile generator for now. And we're gonna work on our height. So if you're really new to this, feel free to watch some other beginner tutorials explaining the basics. I'll just focus on creating this material with like how I got to the kind of look I got, right? So it's a bit, I would say a little bit intermediate, but if you're a beginner, you can also follow along. You might not understand everything, but you'll be able to get through it and probably learn quite a lot from it. So yeah, that said, let's go. So one trick I learned for the normal is to put it to 25. Get a more pronounced result. Might need to tweak this in the engine later, but I like working with normal set to 25. And then what we also want is our AO. It's nice to have that at the beginning too. So you can see we need the height input. And then we also expose this here on our base material. Plug it into the AO. Great. So I like adding a blend node. If we hold shift, click, we can do this. Yeah. Now currently it's all metallic. Since we're not making any metallic surface, we can just turn our metalness off. There it is, metal 0, black 0. Because we're making a brick wall, no metal involved. Okay, I actually used the random tile random because that's this nice breakup, which I kind of liked. You can see if we blur it a bit, we start getting a bit more definition on our edge. I move myself over here. So we had a slope blur to break up our edges a little bit. I like adding a cloud noise. It just creates a bit more, like, of course we could just pipe in the cloud directly, right? We set our slope blur to min because we want to cut into the edges. If we set it to max, it will go outside, for example. Another option to sometimes make it look a bit more stylized is to run the cloud through another slope blur and then into the slope blur, into the final one. So we add this, then for the slope we take the same texture and blur it out a little bit. You know what, actually I like it. Let's just use this for now. This is our edge breakup. Then another core element I have is a crack texture running through here, breaking up the tiles. So let's create this. We can do this by let me just check. Create a tile generator. Let's say disk, little disks. Let's do position. Our distance. Right. In the tile generator, random color. Add a histogram scan here. We get something like that. So now, since we have this pattern, you can imagine these are our cracks going like this. We can take an edge detect, which it does what it says. It detects the edges. You can turn a reference down. Tolerance. Looks good. And then we can run this through a directional warp. Because now you can see it's quite round, so we want to make it a bit more cracky. Just take another noise again. Just use the same noise we used before, the cloud noise. Keep in mind, transforming it like this is not tileable. But for some things we can get away with doing it like this, where it's not visible. If you're unsure, first of all, you can see if it's tileable by pressing space. You can see there seams. You can always check if our final result is, you know, breaking the tiling. Something like this we can usually get away with kind of safely. I mean, safe way is to use another texture, but that's the one I'm gonna use now. So then we can play with our intensity. Great. And now we can see how this is looking if we blend them together. So with our tiles, we have our this. Actually, it's faster to do it. Select the thing, then put on the blend node, and you don't have to reconnect it. Little things to get used to. So that means we have to put it on, I think, subtract, or will this, no, subtract, subtracts the white part. So maybe let's try darken, there we go. Right, so now let's, you can still see they're quite straight. We can either bump this up a bit, which does help somewhat, but also what we can do is add a slope blur. Slope blur is probably the single most useful node in Substance Designer. And since I kind of like the result of what we did here, we just take, you know, again, this cloud noise with the blur, put this in here. Then again, we want to cut into it, so we put it to min. Intensity is usually quite low. Oh, that looks quite extreme, right? So we have to really do this kind of sparingly, right? I know this looks quite extreme now, but we will fine tune it. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. So we don't want to correct every tile, right? What we want to do is create a mask. So in our blend, we have an opacity input where we can say mask it out. For a flood fill we created earlier. And now we can play with the luminance and say we only want it on the white tiles. One what we can do is add a level. This is like your Photoshop level. And just add a lot of contrast. A lot of contrast. We need a lot of contrast. Maybe we want to, yeah, here we go. And here we just crank up the contrast. So the tiles it does appear on, it appears fully. So let's do it like this for now. Our cracks are quite wide. We can go back and play with our edge detect. We can, you know, make them wider. We can make them smaller. Maybe you want to blur it a little bit, since remember 90 degrees black to white is not very good. Let's spread a little bit. Let's see what our result here is. Does it make a big difference? Yeah, you can see. It is without any blur. And here it is with. So one thing we don't really want is those edges, cracks which continue across tiles, because that kind of breaks the illusion a little bit. Because what I want is like just break them up randomly, right? There's no reason why this tile will break in the same direction as the other one, unless it's like a huge hit or something, right? Maybe, but usually that's not the case. So we want to somehow shift this crack per tile basis, so it randomizes that. And we can do that also with a directional warp actually, but we're not gonna warp them in each direction equally. We will take another grayscale, flood fill grayscale, and use this as our input for how much we warp our texture, right? So white means we warp a lot, black means we warp a little bit. So you can see it creates kind of this pattern. We want to warp it by a lot, let's say 100. Now it's all jumbled up, and that's exactly the effect we wanted. So now let's, again, if we press shift here, it will reconnect it. And yep, we can play with our seed, get the variation we like. I like that one. Let's add a bit more tiles to our, to break it up a little bit more. Let's add angle variation to it. Now you can see they're all facing the same direction. After, like an aged wall wouldn't do that after a while, the tiles. Even a fresh wall has a bit of variation. So let's add a bit of variation to our angles of each tile. We can also use our flood fill for that. Flood fill angle, flood fill gradient is called. Let's put the variation to full. We can blend it in over here. You can see what it does in the extreme case, you know. Subtract a bit. Yeah, this is not good. We're getting these edges. This is a tricky part, right? If you add like bigger things like this, sometimes this happens. So we have to figure out why this is. One reason is we added a blur, right? So what we can do is also just add a blur. The reason, you know, why we added a blur, which changes the position of the edges, while our flood fill uses a very strict position, like a very concrete. And if we subtract this, you know, we'll get something like this, which is, you can see, it does not look very nice. This is a common issue, which I've been fighting a lot with, but sometimes I figure out how to fix it, sometimes I don't. But in this case, we can just take the same blur, you know, with the same amount, and it should exactly yep, you can see it definitely minimized the issue. Yeah, you can see how the light reflects. If we without, that's a lot of variation to how the way light reacts, especially on an angle where you see reflection way more. That's the Fresnel effect, I learned. But yeah, it adds quite a lot. Big, medium, small shapes. With big, I mean we'll do bigger shapes on the surface, and then small would be like little noise, you know, little grainy surface details where when you get close you can see those. Yeah, you can see it's not a square, it's like, you know, there's little chips here and there, like big ones. Like here you can see how it's in the middle, it's a bit up, and on the sides it's like chipped down, you know. Here's like a face, here's a face. I hope you understand what I mean. So I want to create this kind of effect. So you can do this by using a tile sampler, I guess. And tile sampler, yes, create a paraboloid. Set it to max. It's at max. We need a bit less. Maybe let's try something like this. Then we can escape. Yeah, something like that. And now if we invert this, we get something like that. A little bit of randomness. Yeah, the white part is very cut in the least, and the black ones is very cut in the most. Pipe this one in, and we get something like this. So if we carefully dial it in, we get already something resembling what we're looking for, right? It's not quite there yet, but if you go full stylized, you know, this could already be, you know, yeah, cool, that's it. Let's roll with that. Kind of looks cool already, yeah? That's right. However, if we think logically and look at our tiles, you can see in the middle of the tiles, it's a bit hard to see, but you can see that it's a bit higher than on the edges, you know. Makes sense that edges will wear a bit more than the top. What I'm trying to say, we want this texture to be applied more on the edges and a bit less in the middle. Yeah, I recently just found a very janky way to do this. If somebody has a better way, please let me know. It's not very janky, it's a way. I guess there's many ways to do things. But I will show you my way, which starts with a gradient, flood fill gradient. We take that. We remove the randomness, so no randomness on this one for now. And get a blend. Can I do it here or not? We'll take another gradient and turn it around. What do we have? Boo. Nothing. We have nothing. Do we want to overlay this? Overlay? No. Multiply? No. Adds up? No. I guess let's just put it on copy and on 50%. Let me get this, okay. Let's see. Sometimes one has to try around with those different modes. Min darken should do the thing. Let's go with min darken for now. Right, so that's our left and right direction, and now we also want the same from our top and bottom direction. So if you have an idea how to do this, like just radial or a few directions, please let me know. So now we go from the top, another one from the bottom, and now we can blend these together. Nah, min darken is the way to go, guys. So with this, now we can use this as our mask. We can add a level just to, you know, adjust contrast. Sometimes, so to get less messy node stuff, if you select this and press D, you can see it appears here as a small node. You see now, it should add a bit more to the middle and less to the sides, which is exactly the opposite of what we want. So we just click here. This is an invert. We can add a bit of randomize our angles a little bit. So we can crank up the angle variation slightly on each one, not too much. Just a little bit, and see what results we get. Can add one a little bit more maybe. This one we can like this. Right. Let's introduce a little bit of randomization as well per tile. To the mask. Wait, not here, but to the mask. It's a bit annoying that we have to do blur every time now, but hey man, you gotta do what you gotta do. This one we don't need anymore, I guess. Okay, something like that. That looks good. We can try to break up our shapes. Like they're still very square, so one thing we can do at the beginning, like I like before I move on to the smaller details, I would like to break up the big shapes a little bit still. we could add a, what could we do? Let's try adding a slope there. Let's do pretty nice this time. Let's do our double slope blur trick here and see if that gives us something cool. Let's see, 4 after. Yeah, definitely a bit more break. Definitely introduced a bit more breakup, which is kind of nice. Let's increase the tiling of this a little bit more. One can tweak this stuff forever. Let's see also how it looks if we make some smaller tiles, you know, like maybe more tiles. Looks like we could have more cracks. Tweak some things here a bit, see what happens. If we make up, okay. Let's get to some mid-level surface texturing. Let's see, what can we do? Let's try adding a little cloud, maybe not this one, but clouds. I wanna get some here and there, like little surface level chipping happening. That's the goal. So we let's just try throwing some noise, subtract some. You can see it's quite intense. We can I don't like how noisy. For good measures, let's try the third cloud as well. Maybe that one gives us actually the first one. Yeah, that one might be the best actually. You can make it a bit smaller. Get some more sharpness in there. Yeah, that looks pretty nice. Just randomizing a little bit more. Okay, let's go back to our surface. So what I wanted to do is just add another mask. Can add this one again, why not? Maybe one a bit more contrasty, so some tiles have this breakup, some don't. Of course, now we get edge issues again. This is so annoying. Okay, wait, let's do this differently. Over here. Okay, so we added a moisture noise. scale it to 2, added some levels like so, added a blend, and just subtly dial it in, right? I don't want to have too much. And we added a little mask. I just used a flat fill from back here. Don't forget to have the blur in between. And then we subtract all of this. You want to add a little bit more, tiny bit more. Yeah. Cool. Maybe times 3. Yeah, that looks cooler. Yeah, I like that. So now we have areas where it's completely smooth. Since we have already made this cool pattern we used before, this one, might as well try to repeat it. Let's take it, make a smaller, use it as a smaller noise. Let's see if we make it smaller like so. Let's blend it in. I don't like that it all gets so noisy though, so let's create another one, this time with a different seed, so we don't have a repetition, and break it up again. See if we can tweak this a little bit. Add it subtly. Okay. Then let's do a small level surface noise. So this is our small. This is our mid. So we want to include these in here as well. Alrighty, so that's it for the video today. We mostly did our height for now. Next time we'll still add little plants to our height and lichen. And then we'll also look at the base color as well as the roughness map for the material. If you enjoyed the tutorials and you learned a thing or two, feel free to like and subscribe. And yeah, I see you next time. Bye.